Welcome to the Performance Formula with Jody Martins.
Vince, officially welcome to the Performance Formula podcast. It is really awesome having you here.
Yeah, Jody, thank you for having me. I am excited to be here.
Yeah, I think, when you reached out to me through this pod match thing that I'm using to get guests, which now brings interesting people across my path that I've never had the privilege to ever potentially meet before, I just thought, yeah, this could be an interesting conversation with a little bit of a different pace, with a bit of a different take on the things that I would normally talk about on the podcast with people. And so, yeah, I'm super stoked and sort of really looking forward to jumping into this with you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to shake it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Throw a little curveball, because that's what I love about podcasting. I think what everybody loves about podcasting is you get the opportunity to connect with so many different people, get in all these places you never thought you would be in before. And so, yeah, for us to have a conversation, I think is very cool.
Yeah. So I normally, let's maybe go this way first. Just by brief introduction, introduce yourself to everybody listening so that they sort of know who you are, what you do, and maybe that'll give a little bit of insight into where this conversation can go.
Yeah, so my name is Vince Quinn. I'm located in Philly, in the U.S., and for me, what I'm doing is I am formerly a nationally syndicated sports talk radio host. So I spent 10 years in radio, started in Philly, and we can get into my background to do all of that stuff, because I basically started as a walk-on, as some people would say. Like, wasn't recruited, didn't have a great education in that sense. Like, I just figured it out and worked my way in the door. But yeah, at the peak of it, I got a nationally syndicated show at 29. I walked away from nationally syndicated radio at 31 and switched into podcasting. And so now I've got a whole business that's dedicated to helping business owners with their podcasts. And it's a kind of wild and crazy world. So yeah, and honestly, a much bigger shift than I thought it would be. Jumping from radio to podcasting, like, gigantic leap. Like, I jumped over the Grand Canyon and I had no idea. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think for many people, podcasting isn't, they might not see it as such a big money spinner yet, like for me, it's just something that I do because I enjoy doing it. I love having these types of conversations and learning from it, but it sounds like by your explanation that there might be more to this.
Oh, for sure, because there's so many different ways to play it, right? Like, that's what I love about podcasting, because it can be pretty much anything. It can be 2 minutes long. I've worked on 2-minute shows that have a sound bite or a like bits of music and sound effects for all 2 minutes. It's super produced. Other stuff is 2 hours long and it's just a conversation and there's nothing to it. So the range of it is crazy. And like, I work with business coaches and consultants, for example. So they are the business. They have a lot of things to talk about. We use the podcast to make a ton of clips for their feed so they can get their marketing out consistently and have the right kind of people that could be potential clients on the show. So yeah, like there's so many ways to spin it for people. And that's part of what I love is I think about it like offensive systems. Honestly, I was talking to my business partner about this yesterday, because like, for me, being a football nut, all these coaches have different playbooks and systems, and you can kind of think of a podcast like that. There's different strategies of what you want the podcast to do, the roles that you're playing, the kinds of people that you want to bring on, how it gets used in post-production, and figuring that stuff out is an absolute joy. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to spin it.
Yeah. And from the first moment connecting with you, it was like you bring this really vibrant energy into that's my sense, right? I don't know if it's just sort of me getting this across the screen here, but some people just listen to podcasts. This one is available in video, but even if you just listen to you, I can see there's a real passion that you have for this. There was something that you said there, though, that's now really piqued my interest.
Okay.
I can imagine that for, say, the first, I don't know how many years before you got to a nationally syndicated show at the age of 29, that might have been something that you were pursuing. Or did it sort of just fall in your lap?
So, total accident. Like, complete and total accident. And it was one of those things where I got there, it was like, oh, this makes all the sense in the world, but I had no idea. So the background of it was, I went to college, and technically I had a career in TV and radio, like that was my specialization, but was never in a TV studio, was never in a radio station, never worked on a show in any capacity, not even as an intern. Like, I everything was theory, which meant it was completely useless. I learned nothing useful in school. So that was great use of cash. But beyond that, like, what happened was I got into radio because when I got out of school, I thought I was going to be in television. I wanted to like either write commercials, like funny commercials, or do a late night show, or like I'd like to entertain people. I was into comedy. I wrote jokes for people. I was messing with doing open mics myself, and even worked at a comedy club for a little bit at one point, like running the room and doing 5 minutes up front. So I saw all that kind of stuff and loved entertainment, and thought, this is the kind of space that I want to be in. And I went to college in New York, so I was thinking maybe I stay in New York and do all of that. But I moved back home to Philly shortly after I graduated college, and I was working at a pizza shop because I had no prospects and nobody was hiring me. But I started a sports blog. So I started a sports blog out of college, talking about all the Philly teams here. And I was writing all the articles. I designed the website, all the graphics on it, hosted a podcast, had some other people on the show with me. And I had an uncle that called me out of the blue and was like, hey, I know somebody that needs promotions people. So somebody to go to events, set up tents, spin the wheel, all that stuff. And are you interested in doing that? And I thought that was kind of fun and interesting, and I had nothing else going on. And then once I got in the door, I realized like, oh, duh, sports radio. Like I have the sports blog. I'm a complete obsessive for sports. I knew like every player in the NFL. I liked players around the NFL. I had jerseys of players on all these other teams growing up. It wasn't just like I'm an Eagles fan. It was like, no, I love the sport and the league, and I happen to be an Eagles fan. So to get the chance to get in the door in my hometown for the sports talk station and be able to say, oh, okay, well, I can go from being in promotions to finding a way, like what is that way that gets me into that door where I can be on the air and a part of a show. That's what I really spent my time doing once I got there, was just like, I think this is actually a way bigger opportunity than I initially thought.
Okay. But that's still sort of like you're following a passion, right? Maybe there wasn't a dream, but there was a sort of dream to entertain. It was maybe not so niched and so specific, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like it was funny because the only reason I never thought about radio was because when I was growing up, my parents didn't listen to sports talk radio. They didn't listen to talk radio really at all. And if anything, we just played music in the car. So I never thought about it. It just wasn't a part of my life. I thought TV, I thought maybe, hey, I could do ESPN or something like that, potentially, because I was always addicted to sports. I mean, I played Madden every year. I bought it every year. I'd ride my bike the day it got released to the game store to go and pick it up and play it all day. Like I was a complete obsessive. So yeah, I knew I wasn't an athlete. I was a terrible athlete. So I knew that wasn't going to happen for me. But a lot of the relationships I had were based on sports and just talking about people with their different teams and what was going on. And so, yeah, like once I got there, it did make sense very quickly. But just being a 22-year-old that was completely oblivious, it just didn't hit me until I got there.
So the thing that piqued my curiosity is, so yeah, you are living what potentially could have been a whole bunch of other people's dreams, and then within 2 years you quit that.
So yeah, it's because here was the interesting thing, right? The whole path to go and get to that national show was brutal, just completely brutal. One, sports talk radio in Philly is a tough racket, man. I mean, people are not always nice to you. I think Philly sports fans have a reputation. Sometimes they've earned it, sometimes they haven't. But when you're on the air and giving opinions and you're on Twitter and tweeting all these things, I mean, people can be brutal. So for me, I mean, especially I was young when I first got on the air. I was 25 the first time I did a show at WIP, which only like two other people in the history of the station had ever done. So that was a big deal, but I wasn't necessarily ready for what that would be emotionally, to have these people coming after me saying, you're an idiot, and like, how could you possibly believe these things? And like saying personal stuff about me sometimes, when I went into it trying to be totally well-intentioned and balanced and fair and all that kind of stuff. So like that was really hard. The hours were hard because I was overcommitted to it, right? My whole philosophy was, I'm going to do literally everything that I possibly can to climb the ladder as fast as possible. I want to be so undeniably better than the people around me that they have to give me the shifts. Like, I'm going to build this career. I'm going to get a full-time show. I'm going to do it as quick as possible. And that's the only way I know how to do it, is if I'm committed to something, I'm completely committed. So I was like, when I would do the promotion shifts, it started with, I would do these promotion shifts. Sometimes they're 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. And as soon as I got back to the station and unloaded all the stuff, I would go to the producer's booth, sit in with the guy who was a producer and just ask him like, hey, how do you do this? What is this? How does this work? Did the same thing as a host, getting the opportunities to talk with hosts. When I was a producer, I would ask the host after the show, hey, why did you make these decisions? And I would take every shift that they gave me. So there was times where I was literally a host and a promotions employee at the same time. So I could host a show, and then 6 hours later, I would go out and spin a wheel, and nobody know who I was because I was a late night part-time host. So I was so obsessive and so ingrained with the station that I let it take over my life. Like I wasn't out and about. I wasn't social anymore. I was always saying no to stuff because I was taking the shifts. The shifts were every hour of the day. So sometimes I'm done at 6 a.m. Other times I'm starting at 6 a.m. I'd sleep 3 hours at a time most times during the day. I'd have like 2 3-hour slots to sleep, and I would have to very regimentedly plan those so I could get back to work. And it was at the point where I kept a sleeping bag in my car. I mean, because I slept at the station all the time. I just did. I slept on a couch at the station constantly. It was a pretty regular thing. So, yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. I burned out. I just burned out because it was like all of that work to get to that point, and then I get the national show, and as much as those slots were only 2 days a week. That was in New York. I was also working in Philly still and doing some work there. The clock was still crazy. And you had to now keep up on that national scale. I need to know everything that's going on in the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, college football. You get random stories that pop up. Sometimes politics stuff pops into the conversation and connects with sports. So now you have to be knowledgeable and have an opinion about those things because people want to talk about it, and you've got to have something to say. You need to know when a trade happens 2 hours before you go on air, what the details are of that. Do you have sound bites? You're cutting that sound just before the show goes live. Like, it's an insane amount of work, man. It's all this knowledge. Sports is always happening. And so to keep up with that and do it at the level that I wanted to, where again, like I wanted to be undeniably great at this. I wanted to have well-founded opinions. I wanted to have stats to back me up. I wanted to have sound bites. And I was doing all of that without a dedicated producer. Like, I didn't have a full-time guy that was with me. Sometimes they would literally join my show in the middle of my show. They would switch with somebody else. So it wasn't even like I had the same person to plan the show with and do the whole show with. It's one producer for 2 hours and another one for 2 hours. So I got to tell him what's going on in the middle of the show in a 3-minute commercial break. I just have to be like, hey, here's the rest of the show. Here's all these different things. Do you have this cut? Do you have that cut? Like, it was crazy. So yeah, man, it got to a point where I was miserable. Like I think I was legitimately depressed. I had no energy. I had no social life. And as much as I was doing all those things, I also had to consider the future of sports talk radio. And I just didn't think it was a good one. Just like the radio business as a whole, corporate radio, not doing well, tons of layoffs in the time that I was there. And there's been a lot since. So ultimately, I think it was the right decision. But yeah, it was incredibly hard to walk away because I really did think it was going to be my dream job. And once I got national, changed my life. And it kind of did, but it changed it for the worse.
I think thank you for sharing, all right, firstly.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that there's so many people out there that can resonate with that. You know, like, yeah, sure, you're not the athlete on the field, which is what we tend to focus on, yeah. But, you know, I think of an athlete that's passionate about their sport, that pursues it, that has this dream, that wants to get to the top, that's prepared to go out there and practice every day, gym, do whatever they need to do. And then I've seen this happen so many times. They get the opportunity to actually step on the field at that top level, and then it's just not there, you know? And I think what you mentioned there, that idea of burnout, that certainly is a huge part of it. You know, in the sports world where I have operated in the past, it's almost frowned upon to rest and recover. And, you know, you should just be on all the time, you know, and that's how it sort of sounded like it was to you, but maybe by your own choice, because of how you wanted to go about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's hard. I mean, because for me, part of it was, you know, I didn't have a big name. I didn't have any connections in the business other than my uncle who knew a guy who wanted somebody to spin a wheel. So I had to build everything on my own. And it was at a point where I'm not making enough money because technically I was a part-timer that was doing all of these different things. So no full-time salary. I had to take the shifts if I wanted to get paid. And when you consider the amount of work that goes into watching these games, analyzing these games, preparing for a show, executing a show, like it's a ton of work. And to take a job doing anything else would have made me fundamentally worse at my job. And I knew it. So when I'm trying to grow, it was like, okay, I have no choice but to just fully commit to this, take every single shift that they give me, be the guy that's always filling in when they need somebody, so I'm always available. And all those things did pay off, right? Like it got me where I was. I hosted at 25, which is amazing. I got national at 29, which is amazing. But like, yeah, the cost of it was brutal. And part of it was too that when I got to that point where I developed that level where I knew I was really good, I had to promote myself, which was hard. So I didn't have a big following, doing overnights and things. You get a lot of truckers and stuff. They're not exactly going out of their way to follow me on Twitter and engage with my stuff. So I had to promote myself. I had to build my own brand. They weren't actively selling sponsorships for my show, so I wasn't making extra money in that way and getting appearance fees and stuff like that. So it was just completely drying out. And it's like, well, I have to build my own brand, and I also have to wait for all these people because there's only so many slots available. There's only so many full-time jobs to go around. And so when all these people are, let's say, mid to late 40s to early 60s, for the most part, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I would either have to go to another city, which I didn't want to do. I grew up in Philly. My wife is from North Jersey, so both of our families are here. I don't want to go to the middle of the country and be 8 hours away or whatever it is on a flight. Like I wanted to be home. I was in these markets already. I wanted to invest in that, and that's where people want to be. You want to be in a big city. Philly's one of the biggest cities, one of the best sports towns, and I was national. So like there was just nowhere else to go. I didn't want to wait anymore. I knew the workload was going to be a lot. And I was miserable. So I just figured, yeah, I've got this opportunity where podcasting kind of came to me as a small studio at this point that was running and needed some help. And that opened me up to the idea of like, maybe I go and make a pivot here and just take all of these same skills in a newer medium where I've got more control and say in all of this, and I can truly build myself and not hope that other people do it for me and hand things to me. And that's ultimately why I had to make that call.
I want to get into that a little bit later. This idea of pivoting. But before we maybe do, I have this thought in the back of my mind that maybe you can provide some insight. And I don't even know if this is a really well thought out question here.
Okay.
We have people like you who watch a lot of sport and, by the sounds of things, have opinions about that sport.
Yes.
And like, what in your sense, right, is the difference between the people that are really exceptional at sport and the ones that are maybe not? Like if you've watched all different types of sports, by the sounds of it, you've most probably sat and listened to hundreds of different opinions about different types of athletes. What do you think are some of the things that differentiate from your sort of eagle eye view, like from the top over here, what's the things that are differentiators between the best of the best and the ones that are professional, say, but aren't that great, and maybe even the ones that don't make it, because you speak about college, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people at college that don't take the step up.
Yeah. So two lanes to it. So one is really the like specificity and nuance of an opinion and being able to deliver that well. So for me, talking about football all the time, right? One of the things would be you get to free agency and you're talking about, oh, they didn't sign this guy or they let this person walk or they didn't trade for this star player that was available. Why didn't they do that? Like running back has always been really the past like 10 years has been a well talked about issue of how valuable is that position. And I was one of those guys that 9-10 years ago was like, well, listen, it's not a premium position. These people get injured all the time. When you're building a roster, it's one of the least valuable things that you can invest in. And based on where the market is, it's not valuable. So like that kind of argument is nuanced and thoughtful. And then I can talk about contract values relative to positions and all those kinds of things. So like, all right, well-researched, very specific, hard stance, easy to explain, and also in a sense, easy to debate. Right? Like, this is my opinion. I don't think running backs are worth it, is the simple baseline thing that you throw out to people. And now you argue that because on the surface, people might say something like, well, I don't think it's a good move, or I think it's a good move. But it's like, why? And being able to really dig down and explore somebody's true principles of what they believe a good football team is and how it operates and what a coach should be doing and what that value is in a system. And, like that's when you're getting into the heat of it. And now you're getting into some nuanced quality conversation. The other side of it is that entertainment aspect. And that's where it really gets interesting and difficult. And I think causes a lot of complications personally for me and just with sports entertainment as a whole, because the truth of the matter is, for a lot of people that are doing this line of work, it's not necessarily about being fair. It's, am I getting attention? And so the more explosive the opinion, then the more attention it's going to get. And so, as you hear it, you might hear hot take culture, right? Like that's what it is. These guys are wrestlers. And the way that they're doing all of this is to get engagement. It's not necessarily what they believe, even. It's a character that they play because they separate themselves. And when you make this opinion, like LeBron James versus Michael Jordan, right? So, okay, if you're in the LeBron James camp, you're going to constantly do all of these things that are about LeBron James, and pro LeBron James. But if you're in the Michael Jordan camp, you've probably criticized LeBron James his entire career and all of these different things about him, in part because you're Team Michael. So that one opinion is now influencing every other opinion that you have along the way for the rest of your career about that guy, because you don't want to change that Michael Jordan is the guy. So that's the kind of stuff that you see. It's let me be loud. Let me give the strongest opinion because it has to be extreme to get that attention, to stand out versus other people. They're going to yell and scream. It's very performative. And again, it's because it's sports entertainment and they value it in that way. It's about the ratings. It's about getting those tweets and retweets and whatever. And that's what they care about. It's, am I engaging or not? They don't care about, and honestly, they're not held accountable to any real degree by the public of, are they right? Is it, are their opinions good? Are they accurate? Are they well-informed? Are they making the right suggestions of what teams should do? Like, nobody keeps score. And it's just about whether, as a fan, you agree with that opinion or not. And that's it.
Yeah. I'm thinking that you answered my question, but you didn't answer it in a way that I was expecting. And it was sort of interesting where you took it. I suppose it is because that is your expertise, right?
Yeah, I mean, because for me, that's the nuance of it, right? Like when I'm getting on a stage or I'm getting in a studio and I'm going to run a show, there's different ways to approach it. And that's it. One of them is you're a wrestler. Like I kind of divide it into two schools of approach. One is you're this wrestler, which like Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd, like those guys are characters on television that people think are real sometimes, but they're characters with fake opinions, basically. And then you get the other people, which is more like Dan Le Batard, which is like more analytical and fun. Bomani Jones, Pablo Torre, like all these guys that are big names, and they're fun and they can be goofy, but they try to be more journalistic in their approach and be more sincere about what they're covering and try to make their honest opinions just more entertaining rather than be entertaining for, creating opinions for the sake of entertainment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask my question again.
Okay.
Maybe I must ask it a little bit different, right?
Sure.
So you've had this opportunity to look at stats. You've had this opportunity to try and understand the game so that you can form an opinion on it and then therefore comment on it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at sort of everything you've gone through and your experience, could you say with a degree of certainty even if it's just your own opinion, like what is the difference between an athlete that plays college level and an athlete that becomes a professional? What would be some of the differences that the one has that the other one doesn't,
Interesting. Yeah, because that is a fascinating question, right? From the college standpoint, because especially, and I'll keep it from the NFL perspective, just generally speaking, because for me, it's like where I'm most obsessive, and I think it's just consistency in the analogy here. But you get so many guys that go into the draft every year, phenomenal athletes, right? They have, I mean, the physical skills of all of these guys, and they measure them. They literally, hey, run a 40-yard dash, do a bench press, do this quick cutting agility drill, and do these interviews. Like they do all of this stuff to really poke and prod and try to, dissect these people before they draft them. So there's a lot of thought, and there's a lot of money at stake. You're paying these guys contracts. You want press around these guys as they're coming in and selling jerseys and all of that. So there's a lot to consider. But I think part of it is, one, are they put in the right situation to succeed in college? Do the coaches, the teams that they go to, the coaches they work with, are they used properly? Do those coaches understand what system they should be in, how they should play within that system? So that's something to really consider, because sometimes you get, like, quarterbacks, for example, are just the biggest thing that people pay attention to. But if you're a really talented quarterback that isn't developed well, then you have all the physical tools, but you haven't been taught to read a defense properly. So you're going to have a hard time when you get to the next level making those decisions. And if you're turning the ball over because you were never coached well to do it, and it's going to take 4 years to unwire that coaching from your brain and get you to think at an NFL speed to make those decisions, teams probably aren't going to wait around for you, because they're not going to be patient. They have some patience, but not that much. So you need to have the right influence in that way. I think there's a maturity issue, right? Guys that get into trouble, especially when you go from college to pro. I mean, it's getting a little different now, because college players, you make money now. They have open contracts and sponsorships and stuff like that. So maybe this will get better. But that maturity aspect of, you have money, you have a bigger spotlight, you have a bigger target on your back because you are an NFL player. People that come out of the woodwork that you haven't talked to in 15 years that think owe you something, or they think you owe them something. Like, there's just all this stuff. Everybody's grabbing at you. So to be able to properly protect yourself, your time, be responsible, have the right diet. Like, guys sometimes get into the leagues and gain weight, or they're just not in the weight room enough for the NFL level of commitment, or because they were more talented in college and they were just better athletes, so they were able to get away with more. But actually crafting the skills to go with the talent is truly what makes you elite. And so are they willing to put in that work? Or, is it they like the sport because they've been great at it, and now that they're challenged with hitting that next gear, they're not willing to refine on that level, or they just don't have the comprehension of the position to that point where they can unlock it and truly achieve to that level that you think. Like, those are the kinds of things on a basic level that I think about, but I'm sure there's a million factors of why people can't quite make that leap so successfully.
I think there's so much in what you said there that is so valuable, because maybe as a sort of summary for me in what you said is that, because nothing what you explained there from your point of view is about how good the person can pass the ball or kick the ball. It's everything's got to do with, from what you maybe add to the conversation, is everything's got to do with things beyond almost like the sports field. Like, how do you deal with your money? How do you deal with relationships outside the sport? How do you stand in front of a camera and speak? And yes, if you're going to be 18 years old and expect millions of dollars to be paid towards you, well, then maybe that organization is going to demand that you stand in front of a camera, and are you able to do that? So I didn't say this to you before, but I'm currently in the US. I'm here for 3 years on a working visa, and the where I come from, South Africa, we coach sport. It's also a sports mad country. We've got rugby, cricket, there's soccer or football, is sort of the main sports. We've got a national hockey team, and then there's a whole bunch of others, all the Olympic sports we compete in as well. And I can't think of times when I really know that we're focusing on those sort of things that you just mentioned, across all those sports, where people go out of their way to make sure that they able and capable to do that.
Interesting.
That was the one thing. And then the other thing was this idea, like, it's a little sort of thought that you mentioned it, but this is how I make sense of it. It's almost like that they've got to be ready for the next level at their level. Like you said, so you spoke about decision making, that the quarterback's got to be making defensively, and so if he can't make NFL level decisions at college level, then he's most probably not going to make the step up.
Yeah. So yeah, all those things are hard. And like, I read a book recently. It's called Atomic Habits from James Clear. Have you ever read that book?
I've not read it, but I've seen it.
Oh man, I highly recommend it. But yeah, I think the overall philosophy, to really summarize it, is something that I learned from reading his book. But the whole basic premise of it is, you're basically capped by the quality of your systems. And your systems are the things, all of these habits that you have day in and day out, that keep you on track to being successful, to growing and getting better, just as a person with whatever your skill sets are, like if that's in the gym, if that's comprehending a playbook, whatever it might be. But you want to have the systems in place day in and day out. And if those systems are good, you will get better and you will see the success that you want. So, like, how can you establish those things on the baseline level of what it takes to be a professional, and how can you apply that, to make you as good as you need to be for your specific job?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because I mean, a lot of sport is driven by outcomes. I'm sure that a lot of your talk and a lot of the things is like, is this guy successful on the field? Is the team winning? Like a lot of sport is at times driven by outcomes, and athletes, coaches, teams often focus on that. Are we winning the trophy? Yes or no? And it becomes a bit black and white, very clear cut. You either got it or you don't. Where what that where sort of, if we say rather we build systems, that's a completely different approach. And it's more than focusing on adjusting the system so that the system automatically becomes the thing that produces the outcome.
Yeah, when it comes to all of this stuff with systems. So, for example, being in Philly, being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, they have a very regimented way that they run this team, and it's really more of a principled approach to what they do. So, a lot of times, if you're getting veteran players that are in their 30s, they're not going to focus too much on those guys, right? They'll let them walk in free agency, because you don't want to overcommit to older players. They're bigger contracts, and it's a bigger risk. You always want to be bringing in high level of draft picks, and there's things that actually encourage you to let go of older players to some degree, because they will reward you with draft picks. Believe it or not, the system's all convoluted. But they believe in youth constantly, extending their core guys and making sure that as they are like truly the top of the line core players of the team, that's what they want to care about. They will plan years in advance, knowing that, hey, certain young players are going to come up at the same time for contracts. We need to know 4 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, that we are ready to give those guys the top of the line deals that they need. So they know that, once in a while, your team's going to get horribly injured and it's just bad luck, or you have an incredibly hard schedule and things just don't go your way on 2 or 3 games. So you don't get the seed that you want, or you just miss out on that playoff spot, or whatever it might be. But when you know that you're doing the right things day to day to train these guys, keep them healthy, keep them well nutritioned, you're taking care of them and their families so they feel good at home. You're investing in youth all the time, but have the right veteran balance without overcommitting. And you do that year over year and commit to the right kinds of coaches, then you're going to win a lot of games. And overall, are you going to win the Super Bowl every year? No, like the system's not built for you to do that. But you're at least going to get to the playoffs, go deep in the playoffs, appear in a Super Bowl. And as long as your window is open, because you're always doing those kinds of things, understanding the market, where to invest, stuff like that with these players, then that gives you the opportunity. So they always do that. And I think on a personal level, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you're not going to have the best year all the time because stuff happens around you, or you've got some personal stuff that just does affect you, right? Like it's going to carry over onto the field once in a while. But how do you do things to make sure that year in and year out, that generally you're giving the best performance that you can possibly give? Then those are the things I get that the stats matter and they do bother people and affect decisions, but long term, for the sake of your career and how to take care of yourself, those are really, it's the big picture.
Yeah. I'm loving how this conversation sort of weaves in all these different things from a completely different perspective, and how what we do on a sports field isn't too dissimilar from what we do in life, and how you build a business, or build a team, or put together a plan or strategy to grow something new. Like it's all comes down to similar sort of things. Have you got a system in place? Are you doing things for the right reason? Is your values sorted over your, and are you living by those sort of things? And so I think I think what I'm realizing is that there's a lot more crossover between things, that we don't necessarily always give credit to. You build your CV as an athlete, and then we think, well, it's not going to help me in the business world, but actually there could be quite a lot of overlap.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same skills. I mean, look, for the baseline of stuff, okay, if you're an athlete, you're going to hit the gym, and like I would recommend doing that in real life anyway, right? If you're retired, like yeah, go to the gym, be in good shape, be healthy, have energy, get up early, and have like some peace in your mornings. I love doing that. I usually get up at like 6:30. and I go to the gym is the first thing I do. And then other stuff is, okay, well, you're going to watch tape or you're going to do some kind of study. And great, do the same thing. Like read a book that's about a certain aspect of business that you don't know anything about, that you want to get better at. Watch a video on YouTube, a tutorial about something you don't know how to do. And all those kinds of things, that philosophy is what I did to build this business. Because like when I got into business, I had no experience whatsoever. I didn't go to business school. I didn't have any business conversations because I was just a host in the middle of the night or a guy spinning a wheel. And it just wasn't something I was a part of. So I had to figure out everything from scratch, which meant I was reading constantly. I was connecting with people that I knew were in business and asking them questions about stuff. I was trying things just to do it for the scientific experiment of it, see if it worked or it didn't. We keep doing it or we scrap it. I would listen back to tape of shows that I work on, shows that I host, to say, okay, well, I could have run this interview better, or in this situation next time I should try that. And so it's all those same things. Like it's all those same principles, and it's just applying it to a different goal. So, obviously you want to be the best athlete that you can be to help your teammates and win a championship. And on the other side, you might want to be the best CEO of your business, or the best salesperson, so that you can go and make all this money for yourself and your family and the business and have that stability. So what are those things that really matter? What are those goals that you set your time towards? How are you committing to do that day in and day out, and blocking off time so that it's repeatable and easy to manage? And the more you can do those things, the easier and better it gets.
Yeah, 100% agree. So earlier I said I want to come back to this part of this conversation. There's before I went on to a different topic, but I want to get back to this idea of you sort of shifting careers, how one ends and goes into another, that transition phase. I've been through some of those myself, to be perfectly honest, from upending my life in Johannesburg, moving to a small town, to the US now. And I'm wondering just sort of what your experience with that was, how you transitioned, and then what other people can learn from that.
Yeah, so I'm a risk taker just by nature. That's just how I am. I want to believe in the big bet, and I'm willing to go all in on that with the idea that I believe in myself and I think I'm going to make it. So when I had the opportunity to leave radio and go into podcasting, it wasn't a full immediate stop, right? It wasn't like, okay, today I'm stopping radio and now today I'm starting podcasting. I had a little bit of a bleed over period. So I was lucky in that way, where I was still doing some shows, but I was connected with this studio and getting a little bit of a lay of the land and trying to figure out how I was going to fit into that company before I started my own. And when I was doing all of that, I mean, I was just completely oblivious to business, and I didn't know how oblivious I was. And I remember this moment where I'm getting ready to write an email to somebody, and it's like a potential client I'm trying to pitch them. And I realized I don't have an email signature, and I have to make the email signature. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to do literally everything. Like, it's literally every little bit of this business in any way, shape, or form. Like, I need to have my hands on it. And not knowing things about different pricing. And since it was a podcast studio, and at that point it was 2020, there's not good models of this. There's not great examples everywhere. So what's a good example for running a business like this? And how should we price it? And what are the kinds of clients that we should be going after? Or how do we make it work for the clients that we have, which we didn't. They were terrible clients, and we had to change everything. It was a bad model with the wrong kinds of clients, and we had to fix all of that. But trying to solve all of that and what it meant for me to be a business owner every day and have conversations with people that I wasn't used to having. I mean, just selling in itself, like, hey, this thing is going to cost this thing. Are you ready to do that? I wasn't ready to do that. I felt I was too nervous. Like, I'd never had those conversations about money like that before. And I wasn't confident enough because the business was new, where it wasn't easy for me to say, I absolutely know that I can get you A, B, and C. And so with this package, we do this, and here's why we do this. It was just like, well, I think this will work. So do you think you want to do it? Like, it was a mess, man. So yeah, it's a lot of like figuring all of that out. Like, I had no idea what I didn't know. And it's taken me a couple of years to learn as much as where I feel truly in command of what I'm doing as a business owner every day. And still, there's only so much you can do. So like, there's only so many things you can truly be an expert at. There's only so much time you have in a day. There's only so many things that you should be doing day in and day out as a business owner. You have to delegate. You have to find help. And so trying to, experiment with things, realize what I like, don't like, what I'm good at, not good at, and looking for answers, whether it's books, outside help, whatever it might be. Like, all of that comes together in my day to day. I'm always trying to get better. I'm always reading something. And I'm always trying to be critical, but not destroy myself, because it's hard work and you just can't know everything. So it's an ongoing process. But yeah, I mean, it was hard because I just had no experience. I had no guide points. There was nobody more senior than me with business experience. Like, everybody that was in it was new. And so to basically have a team of all rookies that are all trying to perform at a high level together, I mean, it was sloppy and crazy and exhausting and terrifying at times. But I've been able to do it now, where I've been in podcasting for just about 5 years. I've been running my own business for 4 of them, and like, I'm damn proud of that, man. Like, it was hard work, and I'm really happy with where the business is and where it's going to go.
So it's interesting that you mentioned right at the start, you described sort of yourself first. I think a bit about how you see yourself, that you're a risk taker, and you spoke about that you have this belief in yourself. Where does that come from?
It's just one of those things that I've had a lot of different experiences in my life. I've been around a lot of different things, a lot of different people. Like, I have relationships where sometimes one person on this end of my social circle is nothing like the other person on the other side of my social circle, but they're both very good friends of mine, and I keep in touch with them. So I've always been varied in the kinds of things that I like. I think that's just naturally given me a lot of skills that have piled up. So being in comedy, for example, writing different jokes, knowing comedic timing, have an idea of when I can deliver a joke, being able to manage a good conversation and interview people. It just helps me socially. If I'm going to networking events, if you drop me at a party, I've had points where I've done mock trial. I've done, I'm trying to think. I mean, just playing sports, playing a hilarious amount of video games. There's so many video games with different strategies and styles. Some things are puzzles. Some things are war games. Some things are these, you build a character and their skill set over time, and like thinking of those strategies. So I've just seen a lot as like in my brain, and dealt with a lot of different ways of thinking, that all of that experience tied together has gotten me to a point where I feel like when I try something, I at very least understand what it is up front. I have a good idea of what I'm approaching to some degree and how I can fit into that. And I just know that I'm going to work incredibly hard. I just believe I'm smart enough to accomplish the things that I want. And if I can't, for whatever reason, like go through that thing, I'm not stubborn enough where I won't ask for help. So I've been able to get myself out of jams. I have great relationships with people, and a lot of trust. So like, having a good network, a good family, a lot of great experience, a good education. I've just had a lot of things that have piled up through the years. And it's just led to this belief that it is, as exhausting as it's going to be, and as much as it might kill me, I can do it. And so that's, and same thing for radio. Like, that was all those things that led me to get into radio, because I came in with no experience, no background, nobody knew who I was. I had no connections, and I had to make it work, and I did. Like, I as much as I left early, I don't feel like I left anything on the table. I completely proved myself. I have no doubts or questions about my ability or what I could have done. I just don't think it was the right path for me, and I had to start over and do all that work again in a new place. And it's just, and like I said, it's been able to work so far. So until it completely blows up in my face, I'm going to keep that confidence.
Yeah, and I'm sure it served you well. What's your relationship with failure like then?
So I'm critical of myself for sure, because to some degree I'm a perfectionist, right? I want things to go a certain way. I can see what it can be. I want the best version of it, and I'm going to do as much work as I can to try and make that happen. And when it doesn't work out, it stings massively. I mean, I do, like, there's a lot of times where I blame myself for things, and sometimes blame myself more than I should. Like, I am at times my biggest critic, and that can weigh me down. But ultimately, one of the things that's been great about business is like reading about all of these other successful people and seeing what their careers were and the things that they went through and all the trial and error. I mean, everybody has mistakes. Everybody has rough patches. Everybody has hard times. And to the most part, people don't remember those things. They don't care about those things. Like if you build your identity and you build this trust with people, like ultimately they will remember you mostly for the good things that you did and the good work that you're doing. And they just don't remember Like for me as a business owner or a podcaster to go, oh, I forgot to put an episode out this week, when I was early in the stages of it, not like 8 years ago in radio, like, oh, I forgot to do an episode this week. I got too busy. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. Like, as much as I beat myself up over it. So I failed a lot. Frankly, I think is the fair way to put it. I failed constantly for this entire time. I've done it publicly because I'm failing on public radio, on national radio. Like I've seen a lot. And so with that, I just get more, I get, stronger skin each time that I do it. And I try not to beat myself up as much. And again, I've got a good support system too. Like I have people that have been great, that when I am stressed, I can talk to about stuff. They give me the right kind of feedback that I need. And I can just, put it away and keep moving on.
Yeah, I like that. I think the reason I asked that question was because you spoke about how you try things, and I think a lot of athletes at times, like coaches and sort of the people that listen to this podcast, my sense is, clients that I work with myself, my sense is at times we don't just try things, because we're so afraid of the failure. But my sense is with you that, and I think what we can learn from you is that it's almost like you try whether, and the outcome doesn't matter so much at all by the sounds of things. It's not about it succeeding or failing. It's more about the fact that you've actually just tried it and that you believe that you can figure it out. And if you can't, I can always ask somebody,
Yeah, I mean, failure is essential for growth. Like it's just fundamentally true. You have to try things, you have to do things, you have to take risks and experiment with stuff and put yourself in uncomfortable positions to see how it is and how you respond and learn something from it. And what can I take from this thing? Okay, we tried. Let's say we tried a certain approach for a podcast, and after 20 episodes, it's not seeing the kind of traction that you'd want. No problem. Like we tried it. And there might be something that we did in that show, the way we produced it, that it didn't quite accomplish the goal, but in another context, it might actually be the missing piece to solve a problem somewhere else. So like you take all of that information and you're able to apply it to other things that you do down the line. So that is the value of it, to try something. I mean, it's just how our brains work to some level too, right? Like as you do things and try stuff, you build these spots in your brain where you've got access to it and it becomes a more repeatable skill. And so to push myself in that way where, hey, I remember this one time 5 years ago, we did this thing, or I was on this show and this person did that, or I tried this thing in business, or like you can do all that. And you never know where it's going to cross apply. You can take things from anywhere and everywhere because it's all these creative people, creative solutions. And if you open your mind up enough, you just never know how things are going to combine in some way. And so, yeah, to constantly take risks, to try stuff, to know that it's not always going to work and therefore relieve some of the pressure. That's one of the things I've gotten better with as I've gotten older is like I'm not putting as much expectation because I know that things can go wrong and I've seen it a lot, which makes it easier to stomach if it doesn't go well, than to be able to do all of that. Yeah, I know I'm going to see long-term benefits. So I absolutely encourage if you're worried about taking a risk, try it and just see where it goes. Because, yeah, it will be okay. You will get better from it.
And I think it's important what you mentioned there, because I think I have the same understanding about it, is this idea that even though this thing didn't work out, I must probably learn something or got something from this, which later will benefit me. Or later you go, it's because of that previous thing where I also went through this, even though it was something completely different, because I went through that. Now I have a skill or a resource or it could be a mindset, it could be an understanding, it could be something physical that you now have. Maybe you had to pay for a camera because you wanted to go down one route and now you realize, oh shucks, I might need this camera to do something else for me. But I have it, even though that other thing was a failure. And so, I think just in the simplicity of that, like there's a lot that people can get from that in terms of, like, if I relate that to sport, do I go to this coach? Do I go to that coach? Well, go give them both a try. Often parents say to me, we don't know what decision to make. Well, go do them both and then see, because you'll get value out of both and then you can weigh up those things. Or, I don't know if I must try out for this team, or sometimes a lot of athletes get so stuck in one place, and I think your story is similar in that way, that you sort of said you didn't want to go outside of your town. But if you're an athlete and your town is like not giving you anything, well, then sometimes you've got to go look outside. And a lot of people are afraid of doing that, like stepping outside and saying, well, geez, what can I go You know, and maybe this town next to me, maybe there's an opportunity there. I can always just go try. You know, who knows?
Yeah. That's what it's all about. You got to go and take the risk and see what's going to happen, because that's one of the things I actually do from a podcast standpoint. So a lot of times people, when they're just getting started, they've never done a show before. What I do is, because typically what people do is say, oh, I have a podcast now. Just matter of fact, I have a show. It is live. Here's the first episode. I just recorded it. And then they go and figure it out as they go. But then most people quit after 3 episodes because they realize the amount of work that goes into a show, and maybe they don't like it as much as they thought, and they're a little embarrassed by it or whatever it might be. So the way that I've handled that is, hey, you want to try a show, you have an idea for a concept, no problem. Let's talk about it. Let's do a pilot. So we're going to do 1 episode in secret that is not published, that nobody knows about. We're going to evaluate that episode. And now if you like this concept and you think it's good and you now understand the work because you have done 1 and you have an idea of, okay, this is what it's going to be like to consistently do this, then great. Now we can talk about what a whole season looks like, or what it looks like on a weekly basis. We can go design the cover logo and all that different stuff. But first, just make sure you like it. Make sure you understand the work. Make sure it's accomplishing the goals that you wanted to accomplish, or make sure you define what the goals are that you want to accomplish before you do it. And then from there, yeah, it's no risk. Like, you've done the 1 episode, it didn't work out, but now you know you've made that shot, and great. And otherwise, hey, this is really good. And as we go forward, here's some tweaks we can make, and it can get better. And like, you treat it that way. But it's all experiential, and it's just so much better once you experience it versus just talking about it in theory or fully committing without even trying it.
Yeah. I suppose this podcast for me is very much like that, right? I feel like I'm 150 odd episodes in a 4 or 5 year period. My intention was always to be weekly, and that never happened because you move somewhere, or some life event happens, or you struggle to find guests, or you know, and I've sort of tweaked on my brand and tweaked on things as we've gone, and as I've got, you know, as I go along, I suppose I learn more and I understand more. And so I feel very much with this podcast like that at times. It's just like falling. I like doing this. I enjoy doing it. You know, let's just roll with it and see where it goes. And I have zero expectations of what's to come from it or what's not to come from it. I just love having these types of conversations. I mean, this conversation in itself has taught me some things or reminded me of some things. And so I'm appreciative of that. And I'm sure if other people listen to it, it's a little something different on this podcast, but there's definitely value here, you know, and there's definitely sort of cool insights that your story and your experience brings into the conversation around performance, you know, for us to think about.
Yeah. So, and that's the whole game, right? That's everything we've talked about today. It's like, hey, this guy's a little different. Let's see what's up with him. Is there any value in this conversation? Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, it turns out there is. Great. So, like, yeah, I'm glad it's worked out. Because I thought this would be fun, like seeing everything about the show and what you had going on. I'm like, you know, this is a little bit out of left field, but I'm going to take a shot here and see what happens. Because same thing for me. I've got no guarantees that this is the right fit for you, but I'd rather take the shot and see if you're willing to have me as a guest than not do that. And as a result, we had this conversation. So, like, that is total proof of concept, you know?
Yes, 100%. And I'm hoping other people can get some value from just that, you know, the simplicity of that, the fact that we've done it, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Vince, if anybody's listened to this and they want to connect with you, what would be the best possible ways for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so 2 specific things. One, if you are a business owner with a podcast, or you have a podcast and just want to figure out how to make it better, I have a podcast. It's called It's Not Just Talking, and it's on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. So go subscribe to that show if you want to do it. Go subscribe right now. And we do that weekly. And then if you are interested in starting a podcast, or you have an existing show and you want to figure out what to do with it next, always do a free strategy call with people. For anybody who wants it, you can go to freepodcasthelp.com. That is freepodcasthelp.com. And I will happily spend some time, get some information about your show or the show you want to launch, and give you some direction on where to go.
Perfect. I'll make sure all of that's in the description below.
Great. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome, Vince. It was great having you on. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Jody, this was fun, man. I thought you had some really good questions. Like, I honestly, I loved this conversation. I had a great time.
Awesome. I hope to connect with you again soon.
Sounds good. I'll see you on LinkedIn or something. You're on LinkedIn? We'll be besties on LinkedIn now. We'll keep it moving.
Yeah, we'll just keep it going.
There we go. All right. I'll see you out there.
Thanks, Vince. Cheers.